And just before our next programme here on Jackpot Button Lewis 2, we would like to apologise for the delay on the upload of this particular edition of the next programme of Grand Prix Formula 1. This is due to, unbelievably now this time, a unexpected illness that the presenter and also creator, writer, producer and director of the programme picked up from just a few weeks ago. And but it's good to know that we have also heard that he has made a full recovery, and he will be, of course, be presenting future editions of Grand Prix Formula 1. Not to mention, want to also remind you all viewers here on YouTube that you can also see the 14th round of the Reimagined 1995 FIA Formula 1 World Championship with the 1995 European Grand Prix from Nürburgring. But we, of course, will be, as of this edition that's going to be following very shortly here on Jackpot Button Lewis 2, as we'll be bringing you full extended race highlights of round 13 of the 1995 F1 season with the 1995 Portuguese Grand Prix from Estoril, and hoping to see, after another impressive dominant performance from the Williams team with David Coulthard and Damon Hill, can they continue their chances to hopefully secure the Drivers' Championship or possibly the Constructors' Championship with only just 5 races to go. But once again, do stay tuned here on Jackpot Button Lewis 2, as once again, full extended race highlights of the 1995 Portuguese Grand Prix in another edition of Grand Prix Formula 1 follows very shortly here on Jackpot Button Lewis 2. Yeah, are we already set to get underway? Well, it's good to be back here. Sorry about that, I've been away from this. Of all the times to have actually picked up a seasonal cold and flu, you know, obviously that's honestly has to stop me from doing this programme. But it's good to be back doing this, though. I have missed it, though, don't get me wrong. And especially with the next race coming up, you know, as of today, of course, Portugal at Estoril. It's very interesting. And do you like my costume? I thought I would do a little nod to, of course, to the Williams team. I could have got it in a bigger size, but it had a very unusual size guide, you know, with this. But at least I know I've been wearing these trousers before, so well, I know that he's been doing pretty well, David Coulthard, in the championship so far. And let's see if we can try and recreate him winning in this race as of this edition of Grand Prix Formula 1. Well, it'll be very exciting. I hope he can do it this time. Yeah, okay, let's get ready to go. Have a good show, everybody. Let's do it. Later than build now here on Jackpot Button Lewis 2, as we now head to the very demanding and challenging Estoril circuit in Portugal for round 13 of the 1995 Reimagined FIA Formula 1 World Championship season, as we have full extended race highlights of this year's Portuguese Grand Prix. Introduced by Jack Wright, with live race commentary from Murray Walker in Grand Prix Formula 1. as we now reach the last 5 races of this year's Reimagined 1995 Championship, welcome to the Portuguese Grand Prix, here from the Circuit of Estoril. Now this is a very demanding course. It's one that's a favourite testing ground with most of the teams. That means that all of the drivers know its 2.7 miles very well. Even so, corners like the new uphill chicane and the final parabolica, named in honour of the late great Ayrton Senna, can still give some drivers some problems. And last year in 1994, the 71-lap race was won by British Damon Hill driving in his Williams, with his Scottish teammate David Coulthard taking second in an impressive 1-2 finish for the team, achieving his first podium finish in his Formula 1 career, with the flying Finn once again of Mika Hakkinen taking third in his McLaren Peugeot. This win in particular for Damon, being the third in succession in previous races and the 5th of the season, enabled him to move in within 1 point of Germany's Michael Schumacher, while the 1-2 finish for Williams meant that they would overtake the lead in the Constructors' Championship from their championship rivals of Benetton Renault. And astonishingly, this was emphatically not the case last time out a few weeks back at the Italian Grand Prix at Monza, as Britain's Johnny Herbert briefly took the lead of the race from lap 28, while Damon Hill in his Williams Renault came into the pit lane for his first pit stop of the race. It was only to last half a lap until unexpectedly he ran out of fuel and had no choice but to retire from the race. But remarkably afterwards, we had once again for the second time this season a British 1-2-3 finish, with once again David Coulthard taking his 4th victory of the season, followed by his English teammate of Damon Hill taking second, and unbelievably for the first time in his Formula 1 career, for the Northern Irishman Eddie Irvine, picking up his first podium finish in his Formula 1 career and the first for the Jordan Grand Prix team in their team's history. It was an unfortunate performance for the Ferrari drivers of Frenchman John Alesi and Gerhard Berger, however, as they only could manage 4th and 5th place, while Germany's Michael Schumacher in his Benetton Renault made up for the unfortunate retirement of Johnny Herbert, only managing to finish in 5th place and getting 2 championship points in the Drivers' Championship. So as we now reach the last quarter of this year's Reimagined season, David Coulthard in his Williams Renault has only got a narrow 5-point lead in the Drivers' Championship, but he's edging ever so closer to hopefully secure his first ever Formula 1 World Drivers' title. But as we come to once again one of the most demanding circuits on the Grand Prix calendar, still anything can happen, as 71 laps are to be expected from all of the 24 drivers, and possibly there's still another potential opportunity for Germany's Michael Schumacher in his Benetton, or once again Coulthard's teammate Damon Hill, to still put the pressure on him as we move into the 13th round of this still quite eventful and unpredictable Formula 1 Championship. Good evening all you Formula 1 fans out there, and welcome to another edition, and make that unbelievably not unlucky for some, of course, the 13th edition of my World Motorsport playthrough series, that is Grand Prix Formula 1, and to unexpected and delayed highlights of the full race, of course, highlights of round 13 of the 1995 Reimagined FIA Formula 1 World Championship, with the 1995 Portuguese Grand Prix here from the Circuito Do Estoril in Portugal. And while we're, of course, on the top of it, of course, we'd just like to remind you, we'd like to apologise for the unexpected delay in the, of course, the upload of this edition of Grand Prix Formula 1. This is due to, unfortunately, me catching up an unexpected seasonal cold from just a few days ago. I've managed to recover relatively quickly, but it it's still lingering around since we have now moving swiftly into the autumn season. But I know that of course, I've still been looking forward to bringing another edition of my playthrough series here on, of course, Grand Prix Formula 1, and here exclusively on YouTube, and courtesy of Jackpot Button Lewis Productions and Jackpot Button Lewis Sport Productions, also for that matter too, as well. And if you may remember, as we did actually say on the top of the program, if you were with us just a few weeks ago, well, let me tell you something. I know it's been over a few weeks since the last race, but if you were with us just a few weeks ago, we had one of the most unpredictable races so far in this reimagined Formula 1 season, with an unexpected, of course, retirement for Britain's Johnny Herbert in his Benetton Renault. Unfortunately, even though he managed to take the lead of the race, even though he started relatively quite far down in the grid, I think he qualified in around about 6th or 7th to my knowledge. But despite having a slow start off the line, and also still managing unbelievably to try and almost undercut Britain's Damon Hill in his Williams Renault when he came in for his first pit stop, unfortunately he didn't realise that he unexpectedly ran out of fuel halfway going into lap 29. Even unbelievably, he went to try and also kind of catch Damon out from when we actually saw the race. And unbelievably, he was expected to go in a lot more earlier than planned, but it was an unfortunate error from, of course, from the British driver and the Englishman, and he sadly, unfortunately, missed out on getting a third potential victory in, of course, this reimagined championship. But as you did actually see, since, of course, with the how the game's set up, of course, and not to mention, since we have got the copy of the game here, we've been having a load of problems with the game disc of Formula 1 here, as you can see, since we've already got our copy here in the studio. And but we managed to find a fresh disc, so of course we'd avoid any of course freezes in the screen and jumps and of course and the dialogue from, of course, Murray Walker when we get to race highlights very, very shortly. But we did follow, at the time of when that happened, we decided to follow the real-life results from of this particular season, and we then followed Mika Hakkinen after the retirement of Johnny Herbert. And we do know that unexpectedly he had a very slow pit stop, unbelievably, in about 5 minutes, which I know is very unrealistic, of course, in the world of real-life motor racing, as a pit stop would never ever take that long. But following that, of course, unexpected retirement, we followed, we wanted to go with the results that followed after Johnny's initial retirement. And unbelievably, once again, an impressive performance again from Scotsman David Coulthard, who took his 4th race victory of the year. And if that was also anything to go by, an impressive 1-2 finish also for the Williams Renault team. As you can see, I am decked out in my own, of course, nod to Damon Hill's actual, of course, racing overalls. But we're not going to be following him in this edition of Grand Prix Formula 1. For the first time ever, we're going to be following David Coulthard this time round, after his very impressive, of course, recent form in this year's reimagined FIA Formula 1 World Championship. But as well as that, we also, if that was anything to go by as well, we once again had an unexpected, again for a second time in this year, in this particular season, another British 1-2-3 podium finish for, of course, for British drivers. And for the first time in his Formula 1 career, Northern Irishman Eddie Irvine, for once again the Jordan Grand Prix team, sponsored by oil company Total, took his first podium finish in his Formula 1 career, and also the first for Jordan as of this year, and I think actually in their entire career in Formula 1. So and also Eddie Jordan will be overjoyed with this result. They did, of course, unfortunately miss out on a podium right at the beginning of the year, of course, in Brazil, when we had the unexpected disqualification from both David Coulthard and also Michael Schumacher, when they ended up having, of course, illegal samples of fuel in their cars. If you want to go back into one of the earlier episodes, you can find out about that and on how that happened. But anyway, with that being said, let's move straight on from that, and let's get to, of course, reminding you that, well, also, we have got a few of the other drivers that finished in the top 6. An unfortunate performance for the Ferrari team in front of their Tifosi, of course, for the Frenchman John Alesi and Austrian Gerhard Berger. They both finished in 4th and 6th position, but to make up for the unexpected retirement there for Johnny Herbert there for the Benetton team, Michael Schumacher from Germany managed to only get 5th place and 2 World Championship points, even though he finished a lap behind. So with that being said, we can also remind you that also, as we quickly go now to remind you of the current situation in the Drivers' and Constructors' Championship point tables at the moment. David Coulthard still continues his lead, and he has only just got a narrow 5-point lead over Michael Schumacher with 51 points to 46, and just shortly after, there's only just a handful of points also as well. I think that make that about 8 or 9 points in between him and of course Coulthard's British teammate Damon Hill in 3rd place with 38 points. Mark Blundell finished, of course, since he finished out of the points this time round, even though he has had an impressive form of being on the podium for 5 times already this season, is still currently in 4th place with 34 points. And then just a few points below him is in 5th is Johnny Herbert, following his retirement, running out of fuel in the last race at Monza in Italy. As we just said there, to clarify, with 27 points. And then just a few points behind him is Jean Alesi in 6th place. But unbelievably, he's also tied on points at the moment with 24 with Brazilians Rubens Barrichello in his Jordan Peugeot. And then in 8th place, we have the Austrian Gerhard Berger, also with 13 points at the moment. And 9th, Jean-Christophe Bouillon in his, of course, Ford-powered Sauber. Red Bull Sauber car as well with 11 points, and rounding off the top 10 is Olivier Panis, fellow of course countryman from Ligier Mugen Honda, with only 9 points at the moment. And just out of the top 10, Eddie Irvine, following his impressive first podium finish in his Formula 1 career, is in 11th, and he's currently tied with 5 points, along with the Austrian Karl Wendlinger, who, as we've had, as just heard recently, as of going with this edition of Grand Prix Formula 1, he is hoping to make it to the Pacific Grand Prix at AIDA in just a few weeks' time, and from next month also in November. So even though we're, of course, in the month of October as of currently with this edition of the Grand Prix Formula 1 series. But with that covering now the Drivers' Championship, let's have a quick look at the Constructors' Championship next. And with that impressive and all-important 1-2 finish for the team, Williams-Renault extend their lead in the Drivers' Championship by 14 points, as they have 83 points to Benetton's 69. And 3rd is McLaren-Mercedes with 44 points, who are, of course, quite a few, over about 30 points behind, or just slightly under there, in once again still remaining in 3rd place. But Ferrari are still remaining in 4th place, despite not getting many points in the last few races. And not to mention, as we did, of course, it didn't help with the disqualification of Gerhard Berger at the Hungarian Grand Prix, and that eventual race ban for one race at the following race in Belgium at Spa-Francorchamps. But we do know that 7 points behind, and they are looking quite vulnerable at the moment. Of course, Jordan Peugeot are really putting the pressure on Ferrari, but they are still remaining in 5th place. That was a huge boost for them to get a podium finish, all thanks to, once again, the Northern Irishman Eddie Irvine taking 3rd place, and they currently have 30 points. In 6th place is Sauber Ford with 17 points, and still yet to score over the last few races. 7th is Reimagining Honda with 9 points. 8th, Tyrrell Yamaha with 5 points, and 9th, Footwork Kart with still only 3 points at the moment. So there you go, everybody. That is a quick reminder of the current situation regarding the Drivers' Championship and Constructors' Championship at the moment. So even though Williams have got a 14-point lead ahead of them, it's still very close at the moment in the Drivers' Championship, and especially this all-important race as we get edged so closer to, of course, highlights from this earlier on this afternoon's Portuguese Grand Prix here from Estoril. We can also remind you here that we can remind you of the circuit. This is actually unbelievably now, I think, since, oh my goodness me, I'm trying to actually remember, actually, for the first time when it was took place here back in 1984, this is now actually the 12th round, of course. We'll make that 12th time, sorry, I meant to say there, of this particular circuit hosting the Portuguese Grand Prix since 1984, as we just mentioned there. And we do know that the course length is 2.725 miles, sorry, which is 4.360 kilometers, and there is a lap race distance, as we mentioned at the top of the program, of 71 laps. And also the current weather report also is that we do have a glorious sunshine from our of course from our studio overlooking the circuit. And it's interesting to know that from earlier on, as of this particular race weekend, to optimise their chances at winning here this particular circuit on the championship calendar, that Williams have unbelievably brought an upgraded chassis to the race from earlier on today, and a B specification of their FW17 car, and the upgrade chassis is going to be used throughout the remainder of this particular season. So hopefully that will come in very handy towards the last 5 races, unbelievably, as we have reached unbelievably the 3/4 and of course part of this year's championship, so which is very exciting to hear. But we can also remind you, as we've unbelievably managed to get a little reminder of what happened during practice and qualifying. We do know that on Friday morning the first practice session took place and lasted 1 hour and 45 minutes. Dry weather conditions throughout, and unbelievably the flying Finn of Mika Hakkinen set the fastest time in the first session with a total a fastest lap of 1 minute 23.073, 1/10 of a second quicker than Damon Hill and Michael Schumacher in 2nd and 3rd places respectively, and Coulthard took 4th place with the Ferrari cars of 5th and 6th fastest, with Gerhard Berger being in 5th and Alesi in 6th place. But from, of course, despite the pace of the McLarens in the first session, unfortunately that was not to last, because Hakkinen then was eventually dropped down to 11th place in the second practice session, and then unbelievably he was 2 seconds slower than Damon Hill, who was the fastest in the session with a time of 1 minute 21.443 hundredths of a second. His Scottish teammate David Coulthard was second in his Williams with 0.8 of a second behind Damon, and Schumacher was third with Alesi 4th, and both over a second behind Damon Hill. And Heinz-Harald Frentzen, unbelievably, in his Ford-powered Sauber was 5th, with Martin Brundle in his Reimagining Honda in, of course, with an impressive result there. alongside with taking 6th place, with Eddie Jordan in his Jordan Peugeot, and Gerhard Berger also rounding out the top 8 positions at the end of the session. So very good to see there, a great result there. And we do know that even though that we, of course, haven't got much on qualifying, it's only just showing us here from, we do know that we can manage to show you the of course through what we saw from as of yesterday. We are currently looking at the starting grid for from earlier on this afternoon's Portuguese Grand Prix, and unbelievably Damon Hill for the first time in I think a few races actually got pole position there, so a great result there. Only for David Coulthard, his teammate, only managing to get 5th. But we do know that during the particular qualifying sessions from yesterday, he was really pushing the car really hard, because as we have not mentioned already before on the top of the program, this is quite a demanding course on the cars, and but it happens to be a favourite testing ground with most of the teams of course of this particular 1995 season. So we do know that most of the drivers on the grid know it's 2.7 miles in length around the circuit very well. But we do know that the new corners like the uphill chicane and the final parabolica, Ayrton Senna, named in honour of the late Ayrton Senna who passed away last year, can still give the driver some problems. Schumacher managed to qualify in behind, of course, Hill, with Berger in 3rd. An impressive, unbelievably 4th place there, as we mentioned there, with Heinzold Frentzen in his Sauber. I think that's the best qualifying result there for the Sauber team in so far this season. So brilliant to see that. And also Johnny Herbert also just ahead of Coulthard in 5th place there. And I'm hoping that he's wanting a better result after, as we mentioned earlier on, with his unexpected, of course, running out of fuel at the, of course, coming up to the half race distance in the last race at Monza in Italy. Well, with that being said, I don't think there is anything else that we can catch up on with, but I think it's time for us now to, and myself, to now head over to the commentary box to join my, of course, commentating partner in crime, that being the legendary voice, once again, as always, of the Formula One itself, of Mr. Murray Walker OBE, of course, make that, of course, because we do know at this time he also received his OBE decoration, his Order of the British Empire medal from Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II for his, of course, his services to motorsport and broadcasting. And with that being said, we are going to show you the full, of course, starting grid as we head into, as we now bring you live, and, well, not just live, of course, and I've said it once again, and I don't know why, but we've got full race extended highlights of round 13 of the 1995 Reimagined FIA Formula One World Championship, as we have the 1995 Portuguese Grand Prix here from the Circuito Do Estoril in Portugal. Here is the starting grid for round 13 of the 1995 FIA Formula One World Championship with the Portuguese Grand Prix. And starting on pole position is Britain's Damon Hill in his Williams, followed by Germany's Michael Schumacher in his Benetton in 2nd. Gerhard Berger in his Ferrari is 3rd, with an impressive 4th place from Germany's Heinzold Frentzen in his Sauber. 5th is David Coulthard, with 6th Johnny Herbert in the 2nd of the Benettons. 7th is John Alesi in the 2nd Ferrari, and 8th is Rubens Barrichello in his Jordan. Martin Brundle is 9th with Eddie Irvine in 10th. Parnis is 11th with Mark Blundell, the first of the McLarens, in 12th, with his Finnish teammate Mika Hakkinen in 13th. Jean-Christophe Bourgnon is 14th with Mika Salo in 15th, with Yukio Katayama, his Tyrrell Yamaha teammate, in 16th. Taki Inoue is 17th, with Pedro Lamy in 18th in the first of the Minardi Fords, with his Italian teammate Luca Badeau in 19th and Max Parpis in 20th. Andrea Montemini is 21st, with Diniz in 22nd and Roberto Marino in 23rd, and starting at the back at his first Formula 1 race in his entire career is the Swiss Jean-Denis Delatraz in the second of the Pacific Fords.
Welcome to Estoril and round 13 of the World Championship.
FIA Formula 1 World Championship. Round 13. The 1995 Grand Prix de Portugal. From the Circuito Do Estoril. And now, to take you through all 71 laps of this afternoon's 1995 Portuguese Grand Prix, here from the Circuito de Estoril in Portugal, it's now time to hand you over to our official race commentators. First of all, Jack Wright, then followed as ever by the legendary voice of Formula 1 himself, Mr. Murray Walker OBE. So, as all the 24 drivers currently on the grid are currently going around once again the Circuito de Estoril here for round 13 of the Reimagined 1995 FIA Formula 1 World Championship with the 1995 Portuguese Grand Prix. An all-important pole position there for Damon Hill after an unexpected, of course, I think he managed to only qualify not that far up in the last race, but we do know that his teammate David Coulthard got a pole position this time a few weeks ago at the Italian Grand Prix, but after an impressive, once again, a 1-2 finish for Williams Renault, this of course result is going to be more than important, because we forgot to say at the top of the programme, the team principal of Williams, Frank Williams, is very eager to maintain this winning form for the team after they won here last time out over a year ago back in 1994. But with, of course, once again Hill on pole and David Coulthard only managing 5th in qualifying yesterday, the pressure is really on to see if they can manage another 1-2 finish as of this afternoon's Portuguese Grand Prix. But anything can happen in the 71 lap race distance, especially with the likes of Gerhard Berger there, the best of the Ferraris qualifying there in the top 6, and also once again the current champion Chip, leader at the moment, not just David Coulthard but also the current world champion, that being Germany's Michael Schumacher in his Benetton in second. This is going to be a very close race, and not to mention, I know that even though that he suffered, of course, running out of fuel at the last race at Monza in Italy, Johnny Herbert, he is starting 5th ahead of, once again, just behind him, of course, with David Coulthard, his fellow British, of course, countryman there behind him as well. But with this, of course, being a very interesting but also demanding circuit, I think that it's going to really test the drivers' skills and reactions to the limit here. And, of course, it may not be as technical as Monaco is on the calendar, but just like what we had from, of course, a few races before at the Hungaroring in Budapest, this is just as another challenging circuit, even though there is a few long straights around, but some very interesting corners, not to mention, as we said earlier on, the of course, the extremely tight uphill chicane, and then, of course, the final final Parabolica Ayrton Senna corner at the end also as well. But we'll see what happens in the next, of course, 71 laps. And let's see, of course, if David Coulthard can continue his lead in the Drivers' Championship, as if he wins again, he will be his 5th World Championship race of the season victory so far in this year, but also it will push him a further 15 points ahead of Michael Schumacher in the Drivers' Championship. But once again, let's not get too ahead of ourselves, as just as well as you, Murray. But with that being said, as the drivers are now about to line up on the grid, all 27 drivers now are lining up after the formation lap, and now once again exclusively live here on Jackpot Button Lewis Productions and Jackpot Button Lewis Sports Productions here on Grand Prix Formula 1. It's time for round 13 of the 1995 reimagined FIA Formula 1 World Championship, as we have the 1995 Portuguese Grand Prix here from the circuit of the Circuito Do Estoril here in Portugal.
We've got real excitement coming up now. They're ready for the on. And they're off. This is the critical time now. He's been overtaken. Exceptional. Beautiful start.
That was a real good start there for David Coulthard, Murray. And also, Heitald Frentzen had a brilliant start also in his Sauber Ford there. Having a real battle with Michael Schumacher, who's dropped down unbelievably from 2nd now to 5th place.
The gap is increasing.
Here they come up that very tight. Oh!
Between the two cars. Look at that. The gap is growing.
And that was very unnecessary there. I think that was from Frenchman Jean Alesi in his Ferrari. He just rear-ended Coulthard's Williams there. And with that, he's also got an unsportsmanlike behaviour, black and white flag warning for his, of course, trouble. Disgusting driving there, right at the start of the race for the Frenchman there. I'm sure there must be some unexpected damage
Young man really is a superlative driver.
to Damon Hill's rear wing. Sorry, my apologies. That means David Coulthard. Sorry there, Murray. But with that being said, Damon Hill is now leading 4 seconds to his teammate.
The gap is closing. Race over. The race leader, Damon Hill. In 2nd, Gerhard Berger. 3rd, Michael Schumacher. In 4th position, Johnny Herbert. In 5th place, Heinz-Harald Frentzen. 6th, David Coulthard.
Well, you can see Coulthard has definitely got the faster car, and he's closing ever so, getting ever so nearer to Frentzen. Sauber, he's got the slipstream. Frentzen will try and defend him. Sorry, Murray there. Yes, he's really pushing his Williams Renault powered car to almost the red line down the back down the home straight. Frentzen, nearly tries to go for a move on Schumacher, but Schumacher shuts the door. And Coulthard is now almost just under a second to Frentzen now. Whoa, and look at this, Alesi!
Unbelievable. It's amazing.
And again, Murray! He's gone for a move. He did have the inside line, but he makes contact again with Coulthard. What on earth is the Frenchman doing here? And he's also got another unsportsmanlike behaviour warning. One more warning and he could be facing the black flag in just a few laps of this afternoon's Portuguese Grand Prix.
Race order. In first, Damon Hill. In second place, Gerhard Berger. In third position, Michael Schumacher. Fourth, Johnny Herbert. The sun is out and the weather is fine. In fifth, Heinz Harald Frentzen. In sixth place, David Coulthard.
Coulthard was looking very quick through those two corners. He is just under a second now to Frentzen. But a real battle between him, Frentzen and Schumacher ahead also. Alesi nearly goes for a move again. His Ferrari is right up the rear wing of Coulthard's Williams again. Damon Hill sets the fastest lap, 1 minute 26.799 hundredths of a second.
If he can keep his place, he'll finish in the points. And the gap is closing.
Well, Coulthard was under real pressure there, and I think that was unintentional. He just banged wheels there with Frentzen, but he is past, and I feel like he had to overtake him because he was in a slower car. But now he's up to 5th place now.
He's definitely gaining. That's powerful acceleration there.
Hill leads, Berger second. And my apologies, that was actually Johnny Herbert there in 4th place, as Schumacher is currently in 3rd place. But Coulthard is looking very, very quick behind Herbert here. Herbert must be really feeling the pressure in his cockpit right now.
Hill, Gerhard Berger, Michael Schumacher, Johnny Herbert.
As we mentioned, Damon Hill's got the fastest lap of 1 minute 26.799 hundredths of a second. Coulthard is almost right up Herbert's rear wing now of his Benetton. Through the final Parabolica Ayrton Senna corner. He nearly got the slipstream, but Herbert just does enough to get a little gap to maintain
Right on the edge, pushing into the limit all the time.
his fourth
He's growing.
His 4th place, absolutely, Mayor Murray, as you just said. He is literally pushing himself to the limit, but Coulthard, I'm sure, is doing vice versa here, Murray. He almost goes wide at that corner, but he's trying to maintain the racing line for the next few corners that follow round this Estoril circuit. Up to 150 miles an hour, then braking down into 3rd gear. Round some sweeping left-handers and now a sharp right. Corner coming up before the uphill chicane.
He's closing the gap.
He was very quick through that chicane, Murray, but he had to make sure he wasn't too fast going through those other corners. But he's flying par through.
Damon Hill, Gerhard Berger, Michael Schumacher, Johnny Herbert.
Through the Parabolica corner. And he was almost wheel to wheel with him down the pit straight. Under a thousandth of a second in it now between both these British drivers.
He must be shedding buckets of adrenaline in that car.
Well, I don't think he's just doing that, Murray, but I'm sure he'll be sweating inside the cockpit right now because he is literally pushing his car, and I wouldn't be surprised his body, to the limit here. On this glorious and sunny and quite relatively warm afternoon here at Estoril, here in Portugal, for this afternoon's 1995 Portuguese Grand Prix. Oh, brilliant!
A lot of time now. He forces his way through.
Well, he got a real boost of speed, and it looked like the Benetton was a little slow going through that chicane. Now David Coulthard has taken up 4th place. And now he's on the hunt.
He's closing the gap.
As you do say, Murray,
Hard on the accelerator.
he's flooring the pedal down, staying in 6th gear through the first 2 corners. Now he's on the hunt for the current championship title holder, that being Germany's Michael Schumacher. Coulthard's teammate Damon Hill is now leading by 15 seconds.
Race order. Damon Hill, Gerhard Berger, Michael Schumacher, David Coulthard. He really loves these kind of conditions.
Well, he really is seen to be suited to these dry conditions here, Murray. Damon Hill improves on his fastest lap time, a 1 minute 26.
A lot of time now.
He certainly did there, Murray. Now down to under 5 seconds now to Schumacher, David Coulthard. I think the time that Damon Hill just set there as he starts lap 8 out of 71, 1 minute 26 point.
And the gap is closing.
0.73 hundredths of a second. It goes down now to under 4 seconds. Coulthard is finding some very quick pace here so far. And we're not even a quarter of a race distance yet so far this afternoon here.
He's closing the gap.
As we said before, just before the start of this race, we know that the Williams-Renault team are running a brand new upgraded chassis, which I'm sure is going to help the handling of the car. Not to mention, we know that Coulthard is on high...
And he's gained a lot of time there.
My apologies, a max downforce setting to try and get as much grip around these very
This young man really is a superlative driver.
technical corners. Absolutely, Murray.
Race order. Damon Hill, Gerhard Berger, Michael Schumacher, David Coulthard.
As he now catches up the map marker of Roberto Marino, he's now right up the rear wing of Michael Schumacher's Benetton now, Coulthard. Coulthard is really putting the pressure on the reigning world champion so far of 1994. Coulthard knows he's definitely got a faster car than Schumacher here, so he's just taking his time here, and I'm sure he'll find a gap when to overtake him here. Through the final parabolica. He's trying to catch the slipstream once again down the home straight.
The gap is increasing.
Just by a few seconds, Murray, but this is important for Coulthard.
It's not enough to be lucky. You've got to be good. And he is that.
You're right there, Murray. And he's found a gap.
That's taken him up a position.
What a brilliant overtake. There was a gap. Very easy for Coulthard to find there. And he overtakes Schumacher with ease.
Race order. Damon Hill, Gerhard Berger, David Coulthard, Michael Schumacher.
As he passes the back markers of Pedro Diniz's 40 Ford and I think that was Delatraz's Pacific. He's still managing to try and catch up with Coulthard Schumacher. And David Coulthard, unbelievably, has now set a new fastest lap of 1 minute 25. It just went from our screen, but we will remind you all viewers as soon as it comes back onto our screen again very shortly. Coulthard's just managed to maintain that gap to Schumacher, and now he can concentrate on catching up with Gerhard Berger's Ferrari now. .358 seconds is the gap. Coulthard is now to Berger's Ferrari.
This young man really is a superlative driver. He's closing the gap.
As you said again, Murray, he's really showing, even though it's early doors in this Portuguese Grand Prix this afternoon, but he has got blistering pace in that Williams FW17 car. And I feel like that this could be another important race for him to possibly
He's gained a lot of time now.
maybe win here this afternoon, as we were mentioning before the race started.
Race order. Damon Hill, Gerhard Berger, David Coulthard, Michael Schumacher.
Coulthard is literally flying down the pit straight. And now he's caught up with Gerhard Berger's Ferrari again. Williams are looking very strong here at the moment in this race. Dare I say it, Murray, could we see another 1-2 finish this afternoon? I know that's quite the prophecy to make, Murray, but I feel like they're really proving that they can do it here this afternoon. And there's a blue flag. I think that's...
It's not enough to be lucky. You've got to be good. And he is that.
You're right there, Murray. As he...
He's growing.
As he just passes Luca Badoa's Minardi. Oh, he just catches the grass on the curb. But to be fair, I think he was trying to find a better place to try and overtake him there down the those last few corners before the
The gap is increasing.
parabolica corner. So that did slow him down slightly, but Coulthard is remaining very focused here at the moment.
The sun is out and the weather is fine.
We do know that most of you viewers here on
Race order. Damon Hill, Gerhard Berger, David Coulthard, Michael Schumacher.
We do know that most of you viewers on Grand Prix Formula 1 did, of course, vote in our poll a episodes ago, or make that the last edition of the show, where, of course, of the series, where Coulthard is the second top driver to possibly maybe win the 1995 World Drivers' Championship. But Michael Schumacher is still to be the firm favourite, but definitely over Damon Hill.
He's closing the gap. You can see visually just how small the gap is.
And what a great move there!
Forces his way through.
That was brilliant driving, wheel to wheel there with Gerhard Berger's Ferrari. And David Coulthard now moves up into second place. The Williams team have definitely got a winning formula, pardon the pun, Murray.
He's closing the gap.
But they should fancy their chances of another potential double podium finish like they did a few weeks ago at Monza in Italy. 1 minute 25.226 is the new fastest lap from David Coulthard. And now he's about to catch up
He's definitely gaining.
with his fellow British teammate Damon Hill, exactly 4 seconds dead behind his English teammate, once again being Damon Hill.
Race order. Damon Hill. David Coulthard. Gerhard Berger. John Alesi.
There's another blue flag. I think that's for Pedro Lamy in his Minardi. He must let Coulthard past.
They're really right on the edge, pushing it to the limit all the time.
Well, as you said, Murray, David is really pushing himself here. And it's incredible to see how much flair
Bit off the pace there.
the Scotsman has in his Williams, his Renault, make that powered Williams car. And we can also just quickly hear, we've just been hearing from David Coulthard's race engineer that he is going to be doing a 2-stop strategy. He'll be coming in for his first pit stop on lap 24. And that is, of course, if he can manage to catch up with his teammate, he might potentially try and go for an undercut or maybe an overcut. There's only 5 seconds between him and his teammate so far, as Damon Hill starts lap 16 out of 71 of this year's 1995 Portuguese Grand Prix here from Estoril. We now ride on board with
Race order. Damon Hill. David Coulthard. Gerhard Berger. John Alesi.
With David Coulthard. The Ferraris have now moved up to 3rd and 4th so far. Over the curb and then braking almost down to 1st gear up the uphill chicane. And then round the final parabolica, Ayrton Senna corner. At nearly almost 140 miles an hour in 5th gear. And down the long start-finish straight.
And the gap is closing.
As Coulthard overtakes Massimiliano Max Parpice's footwork hearts. But he is starting to catch up with more back markers here, Coulthard's. He passes the 40 course forward of Roberto Moreno again. And next up being I think that's Yukio Katayama's Tyrrell. We couldn't see his helmet there on the rear camera. But next up is Mark Blundell's McLaren Mercedes. Now we do know that he had a pretty decent start to the season, but unfortunately the pace of the McLaren team has started unfortunately to dwindle. We went a little wide there, but he's now passed. Well, if you're talking about Mark Blundell there, Murray, it felt like he went off the course there, onto the grass there.
Damon Hill, David Coulthard, Jean Alesi, Gerhard Berger.
Up the uphill chicane, and he did get slowed down slightly, but he's still just 6.5 seconds behind his teammate. But he's in a very strong position at the moment, Coulthard. As long as he keeps an eye on his fuel, like unfortunately Johnny Herbert didn't do a few weeks ago at the last race in Monza, Italy. But we can guarantee you that, I'm sure that's definitely not going to be on Coulthard's mind in any place at all here, as being the current championship leader of the Drivers' Championship so far. Only leading by 5 points, but if he were to win this afternoon, he would get his 5th victory of the championship season so far, and also he will be 15 points ahead in the Drivers' Championship from Germany's Michael Schumacher in his Benetton Renault.
And the gap is closing.
And he will certainly put
They're really right on the edge, pushing it to the limit all the time.
Williams Renault in a very strong position in the Constructors' Championship, as both drivers are in 1st and 2nd at the moment with a total of 16 points. 10 for 1st place and 6 for 2nd. The points are going to be all important going into the final 5 races of this.
Damon Hill, David Coulthard, Jean Alesi, Gerhard Berger.
1995 Reimagined World Championship. As he passes Andrea Montemini's Pacific Ford again. Damon Hill starts lap 20 out of 71 here. Coulthard is in 2nd, Alesi 3rd, and Berger rounds off the top 4 so far. Of course, Murray, you'll remind us of the who's in 5th and 6th very shortly when you announce the race order.
He's shedding buckets of adrenaline in that car.
Very shortly. Well, as you said, Murray, he is literally running with not just adrenaline, but he is remaining very cool and calm at the moment here. He's in a very strong position here. The Scotsman, David Coulthard. He still holds the fastest lap of 1 minute 25.226 hundredths of a second as he approaches the other footwork cart of Taki Inoue. Oh, now he can't block him. There is a blue flag.
Race over. Damon Hill, David Coulthard, Jean Alesi, Gerhard Berger.
He needs to let him pass, which he does eventually. Pass once again, Pedro Denard. I was going to end up saying the Minardi of Pedro Lamy. That's what I meant to say there, everybody. I really literally got tongue-tied there for a second, Murray. I'm sure you know what I meant, though, didn't you?
He's losing ground.
Just by a few hundredths of a second, Murray, but he is starting to close on that gap to his fellow British teammates.
This young man really is a superlative driver.
Oh, he nearly catches the grass on the curb, but he just managed to keep control of his car on the tarmac. I feel like his tyres are starting to go here. I think Coulthard might be considering the undercut here for his first pit stop. The first pit window is just about to happen. And I think the fuel gauge, even though it's not on your screen right now, it only will pop up if it is low on fuel when it's practically empty, as we saw in the last race with Johnny Herbert's Benetton Renault.
He's closing the gap.
As Coulthard approaches the Ligier Mugen Honda.
Damon Hill, David Coulthard, John Alesi, Gerhard Berger.
I think that might be Parnis, I think, or Brundle.
The gap is growing.
Well, we couldn't see there from our cameras, but it was definitely one of the two drivers.
This young man really is a superlative driver. And the gap is closing.
I mean, you have been saying that quite a lot this afternoon, Murray, but I'll let you off because we are seeing quite a remarkable performance here from David Coulthard this afternoon here. I think we could be looking, maybe, dare I say it, at a future world champion here. Even though that Damon Hill came narrowly close to winning it despite colliding with Michael Schumacher at the last race at Adelaide for the Australian Grand Prix. And the championship controversially finished 1 point between both drivers, even though they failed to finish the race. Coulthard going out, colliding with Hill into a tyre barrier, and then an unexpected eventual engine failure for Damon, unfortunately. But the rivalry between them has been quite well respected in recent races.
Race order. Damon Hill, David Coulthard, John Alesi, Gerhard Berger.
And yes, we've just heard from the race engineer of David Coulthard that he is coming in. He's going to do...
Must be shedding buckets of adrenaline in that car.
He's going to attempt an undercut here, I think, on his teammate. And he's going to come in for his first pit stop at the end of this lap. I think Coulthard might have timed this one well, maybe. We haven't heard anything from Damon so far, but he might come in very, very shortly as we reach the first of two pit windows of this afternoon's 1995 Portuguese Grand Prix.
He's a bit off the pace there.
Well, he may be still in second, Murray, but I'm sure that he is going to come in for his pit stop. So at least he's got fresh tyres and he can come out ahead of Damon when he pits very, very shortly. In comes David Coulthard from second place.
The gap is growing. He'd better watch his speed.
Oh, and there's a lot of damage on his rear wing there.
Lost the place. Not a good stop there.
Well, we weren't expecting him to have so much damage. There was nearly at half damage his rear wing earlier on there.
He must be shedding buckets of adrenaline in that car. Race order. Damon Hill, Jules Alesi, Gerhard Berger, Mika Häkkinen.
Well, even though he's now down and rejoins in sixth place, that was really unfortunate. I think Jean Alesi is to blame for the damage on the front, or the rear wing, sorry, there, of Coulthard's Williams there. But he's now got a repaired
The gap is growing.
wing now, and now he can concentrate, and he's had a top up of fuel. So at least his fuel load is all importantly going to get him to the end of the race, even though it'll make the car heavier. But he's still having no problems with the overall speed and handling of his car thus far.
Is increasing.
But I think Coulthard might have timed that pit stop pretty well there, Murray. I wouldn't be surprised if other drivers will be coming in very, very shortly. Even though Eddie Irvine in his Jordan Peugeot is currently
Andy's gained a lot of time there.
ahead of him in fifth place. Mika Häkkinen in fourth in his McLaren. Berger third, Alesi second, and Damon Hill currently leading. By a 17-second gap to Alesi at the present moment.
You've got to be good. And he is that. And the gap is closing. Race order. Damon Hill, Jules Alesi, Gerhard Berger, Mika Häkkinen.
Well, even though Damon Hill is nearly a minute ahead of his Scottish teammate, that being David Coulthard, I don't think he is pitted as of yet. I think he might be going further on his tyre strategy than David has. A 7.6 gap to Eddie Irvine now in fifth.
He's closing the gap.
As you just said there, Murray, he's still looking very quick with the fresh tyres. And that all-important, undamaged rear wing on the back of his Williams. And he's caught up by back markers again.
The gap is growing.
Past the footwork, cart. And now I think that's
It's not enough to be lucky. You've got to be good. And he is that.
the Ligier of Martin Brundle, I think.
Oh no! There was definitely contact between the two cars.
And it's happened again! I can't believe it's just happened again, Murray! I think that might have been Max Parpice, and that's an unsportsmanlike behaviour warning for making contact again. There with David Coulthard. Yeah, that's the first time he's done it.
Race order. Damon Hill, Jules Alesi, Gerhard Berger, Eddie Irvine.
As of this afternoon, but he has got an unsportsmanlike behaviour warning for causing an avoidable collision. And that is exactly the same place as where Jean Alesi had made contact with Coulthard earlier on in the race.
And he's gained a lot of time there.
As we've already passed a quarter of the race distance, but we are starting to approach, unbelievably now, the halfway mark of this year's 1995 Portuguese
The gap is closing.
Grand Prix here from the Circuito Do Estoril here in Portugal.
He really loves these kind of conditions. He's definitely gaining.
Well, it looks like Eddie Irvine has moved up to 4th now, as Mika Häkkinen has now dropped down to 5th.
And he's gained a lot of time there.
He most certainly has, Murray, and he's right at the back of the Flying Finns McLaren.
Damon Hill, Jules Alesi, Gerhard Berger, Eddie Irvine. And the gap is closing.
He's just under a second now to Mika Häkkinen. Round the Parabolica Ayrton Senna corner. In the slipstream of the McLaren. Häkkinen goes across to block him off, but tries to remain on the racing line. And Häkkinen has done enough for the moment, but
Really loves these kind of conditions.
Coulthard is right up his rear wing now. Really putting pressure on the finishman. He's really pushing him now. But Häkkinen is still remaining relatively calm at the moment, just as Coulthard is.
He's closing the gap. Sensational. That's taken him up a position.
And yet again, David Coulthard overtakes just on the corner after that uphill chicane and regains 5th place from Mika Häkkinen.
Damon Hill, Jules Alesi, Gerhard Berger, Eddie Irvine.
Coulthard is still looking very quick at the moment. And we can see he's been making a lot of time up, even though despite that very slow pit stop, as we saw earlier on, of 19 seconds around there.
Right on the edge, pushing it to the limit all the time. He's losing ground.
But he's still maintaining that gap, Murray, just remind you there. But he's caught up by another back marker. I think that could be Taki Inoue in his footwork. There is a blue flag and he overtakes him exactly in the same place as he did with Mika Häkkinen on the last lap.
closing the gap.
Well, if some of you out there watching here on Grand Prix Formula 1 are you thinking that Coulthard is having quite the lonely race, well, you may think that, but he's definitely showing a lot of very...
Buckets of adrenaline in that car. Race order. Damon Hill, Gerhard Berger, Jordan Alesi, Eddie Irvine.
Some very quick pace indeed there before you said there, Murray. Ooh! And I know he already got a blue flag though, but he's managed to overtake Jean-Denis Delatraz, his Pacific Ford. And I know it's only his first outing in Formula 1 in his career. Coming fresh from being a former winner of the International Formula 3000 series.
And he's gained a lot of time there.
We do know that this is his second race in his Formula 1 career after racing with the Rouse last season at the end of last season.
He's hard on the accelerator.
And he nearly also gave points to the Rouse team, even at Adelaide this time last year. And that's past, once again, I think, Pedro Lami's Minardi.
These kind of conditions.
Well, the conditions couldn't be any more better for David Coulthard this afternoon, Murray. He seems to be having absolutely no problems at all.
The gap is increasing. Race order. Damon Hill, Gerhard Berger, Jordan Alesi, Eddie Irvine.
Well, even though we haven't seen much action in the pits, the pit lane, of course, there's still a few other drivers I don't think have had a pit stop as of yet, but we'll know when there's, of course, noise coming from there as the race continues here at Estoril.
And the gap is closing. He must be shedding buckets of adrenaline in that car.
As he overtakes Mika Salo's Tyrrell Yamaha. And unbelievably, Eddie Irvine moves up to third now in his Jordan Peugeot.
The gap is growing. That's powerful acceleration there. That's taken him up a position.
But I think that's because of, we did actually hear a few of the drivers are making some relatively overdue pit stops here.
Race order. Gerhard Berger, Damon Hill, Eddie Irvine, David Coulthard.
Well, we don't know if, since that happened,
He's closing the gap.
I think Coulthard has moved up to fourth there. And now Gerhard Berger is now currently leading by 25 seconds. I think Coulthard's teammate Damon Hill has just pitted.
And he's gained a lot
Well, if Damon can't work his way up back after rejoining from his pit stop, it's all going to go down to David Coulthard to try and possibly win here this afternoon.
He's losing ground. Remarkable. That's moved him up a place. This young man really is a superlative driver.
And I think he's overtook John Alesi while he's in the pits. Now he moves up into the top three in third place.
He's definitely gaining.
Well, my apologies. I didn't realise there was actually... Hill is still leading the Grand Prix. I think he's opted to stay out. That's from what we saw on the graphic just earlier. I think Hill's managed to make up a bit of time here.
He's losing ground. Race order. Damon Hill, Eddie Irvine, David Coulthard, Gerhard Berger.
And I can't believe that, unbelievably, David Coulthard, Eddie Irvine and Damon Hill.
He's a bit off the pace there. That's taken him up a position. He's accelerating hard now.
Well, I think that might be Eddie Irvine. I was going to say he was in second place, but I think he's pitted from second. Because Coulthard is now currently in second, and once again chasing down his fellow British teammate, that being Hill.
He's shedding buckets of adrenaline in that car. And he's gained a lot of time there.
But no way! My mistake! Eddie Irvine for the first time since I think I don't know if he was leading at the German Grand Prix. Unbelievably, a Jordan Peugeot is leading they'll make that not just the Hungarian, but the Portuguese Grand Prix here at Estoril. Now, once again, to remind you, Eddie Irvine has come off from the back of an unbelievable third place in the last race. And this is a huge
He's losing ground.
opportunity for the Jordan team here. Hoping to try and get another podium finish, but a win here this afternoon would be just as incredible for it to happen.
Race order. Eddie Irvine, David Coulthard, John Alesi, Damon Hill.
Well, as we said
Closing the gap.
a few laps earlier, we did have 3 British drivers on the top 3 podium positions. But now, since Damon Hill has dropped down to 4th, currently
Loves these kind of conditions. And he's gained a lot of time there.
as 8 seconds are between. He's shaved 1 second off. Eddie Irvine already. Coulthard.
And the gap is closing.
Well, even though he is in a relatively slower car than the Williams, Jordan are really proving that they can be potential winners of a Grand Prix, hopefully in the future. We know that Eddie Jordan has been working tirelessly as ever, but he also is quite the character in the F1 paddock. We do know that
He's definitely gaining.
he happens to be Very skillful, of course, musician from what I was told, Murray. As I got to see, he likes to play the spoons a lot. I'm sure you might have heard that before, Murray, but he's also quite the experienced guitarist also as well.
Race order: Eddie Irvine, David Coulthard, John Alesi, Johnny Herbert.
Well, as we just said there, you just said there.
Not enough to be lucky. You've got to be good. And he is that. And he's gained a lot of time now.
As we saw on the graphic, the Frenchman Jean Alesi is currently in third place at the moment. But just remember, we do know that earlier on in the race he did make contact, almost quite intentionally, with Coulthard right at the beginning. So I'm sure he might be summoned to the stewards after the race, regardless of where he finishes this afternoon. But Coulthard is really hunting down the Northern Irishman of Eddie Irvine, and he's definitely going to need more than the luck of the Irish, pardon the pun there, Murray, to hopefully have any chance of winning this afternoon's Portuguese Grand Prix.
And the gap is closing.
Just almost 5 seconds between both drivers now.
He's closing the gap.
Now slashed down to 3.881 of a second. As Eddie Irvine in his John and Peugeot is currently on lap 41.
Eddie Irvine, David Coulthard, John Alesi, Johnny Herbert. He's definitely gaining.
Of 71 so far of this year's Portuguese Grand Prix here from Estoril. Eddie Irvine needs to be aware of the oncoming presence of Coulthard's Williams here. Even though we didn't see it in the last race, we did know that he had one incredible battle among both the Williams drivers at the last race at Monza in Italy.
And the gap is closing.
But it looks like he's catching up with Eddie Irvine's Jordan now here, Murray. As we also have been told by our production team from the team, of course, race engineer for David Coulthard, he'll be coming in for another pit stop. Initially it was going to be on lap 48, but since obviously the tyres haven't worn as much this afternoon, I think he might go a bit further forward and go.
Not enough to be lucky. You've got to be good. And he is that.
Go to possibly lap 50, I think. Well, now this is a moment of truth here for Eddie Irvine.
Race order: Eddie Irvine, David Coulthard, John Alesi, Johnny Herbert.
Coulthard is getting ever so closer to Irvine's Jordan.
That's powerful acceleration there.
Are we going to see him try and hold off the ever so threatening presence of Coulthard's Williams here from Eddie Irvine? As a driver who has been in Formula One for only just a few years, he is definitely showing a lot of driver skill and talent. Hopefully in the future, I wouldn't be surprised that even if he weren't to win this afternoon's Grand Prix, I think he's got a great future in front of him, because we have unbelievably heard he might potentially be going to the Ferrari team next year in 1996, and possibly also partnering up with the current world champion of Germany's Michael Schumacher. And I think that will be a very interesting lineup. Well, we've also just heard news that John Alesi and Gerhard Berger are set to move to Benetton, and Johnny Herbert might be moving to Sauber next year. Oh, and he's catching up back markers here. Eddie Irvine. Oh, and I don't know if that was...
Eddie Irvine, David Coulthard, John Alesi, Johnny Herbert. The gap is growing.
I think Delatraz might have just clipped wheels there with Eddie Irvine. If even so, yes, we have seen from the marshals he's got a black and white diagonal flag for causing a collision. May only be his first warning, but he needs to be careful, as we have not mentioned before. According to the FIA rules and regulations, you can only receive 3 unsportsmanlike behaviour warnings before you would eventually receive a black flag and then be disqualified from the race.
He's accelerating hard now.
Amazingly, Eddie Irvine is still...
He really is a superlative driver.
He's still trying to hold out this fragile lead in his Jordan so far. You have to give it to him, Murray, though, I have to say. We certainly didn't expect this performance to come out of Eddie this afternoon. And his fellow Eddie in crime, of course, that being, as we mentioned, Eddie Jordan, the team owner of Jordan Grand Prix. I'm sure he is looking on with a very big smile on his face this afternoon. Because they've really started to find some pace.
Eddie Irvine, David Coulthard, John Alesi, Johnny Herbert.
Throughout the second half of this year's
Eddie's gained a lot of time there.
Reimagined season. He's wheel to wheel. Oh! I don't know if it looks like, I think that was one of the Saubers. I think that was Jean-Christophe Bournier, I think. Yes, and I think one of the Tyrrells, I think that was Mika Salo. Yes, they have both received warnings. Because we definitely saw a sudden, almost like slingshot manoeuvre there.
Pushing it to the limit all the time.
But he's also managed to overtake the back marker of Roberto Moreno in his 40 course Fords.
The gap is growing.
Not by much, Murray, but Coulthard is still keeping up to Eddie Irvine in his Jordan. This has been a brilliant performance from the Northern Irishman so far.
Closing the gap.
Coulthard approaches. Martin Brundle's Ligier next.
Race order. Eddie Irvine, David Coulthard, John Alesi, Johnny Herbert.
Still no change of the top four so far. As we approach 3/4
Buckets of adrenaline in that car.
of the 4 race distance, as we already went past the halfway point about 10 laps ago, I think. Streaming through the Parabolica corner. And he overtakes Olivier Panis's Ligier. But Irvine's looking a little slow there. I think he might be struggling with his tyres. Coulthard is now right up his rear wing again. Well, unbelievably, as he overtook him earlier on, he's managed to lap Panis there. He's in 6th place at the moment, Coulthard. I mean, in Panis, of course, because he lapped him earlier on. He's trying his best to try and unlap himself. Now down to 0.02 of a second now. What a battle this is for the lead here at Estoril for the 1995 Portuguese Grand Prix. Oh, he nearly had him there.
Race order. Eddie Irvine, David Coulthard, John Alesi, Johnny Herbert. He really loves these kind of conditions.
Eddie Irvine has never had to fight so hard to try
Losing ground.
and keep David Coulthard at bay. Oh, he just gets caught by the back marker. I think that was Massimiliano Parpis in his footwork cart. He has been told to let him past. The marshals wave the blue flag again.
He's definitely gaining.
He's caught behind back markers again. Oh! He goes wheel to wheel. I think that's with Heinzeld Frentzen.
He's a bit off the pace there.
Oh! And out of nowhere, Rubens Barrichello just comes out of the pit lane exit.
Really right on the edge, pushing it to the limit all the time.
Well, they need to let him pass because they are lapped cars, both of them.
Race order. Eddie Irvine, David Coulthard, John Alesi, Johnny Herbert. The gap is growing.
Oh, and I think Barrichello's made contact with Frentzen. And he's done it again! That was nearly 2 unsportsmanlike behaviour warnings in the in the space of a second.
The gap is increasing.
Well, despite that unexpected chaos with those back markers, Coulthard is free, and now he can try and catch up back with Eddie Irvine. Because I think that was, John Alesi just who pitted just now.
It's not enough to be lucky. You've got to be good. And he is that. And he's gained a lot of time there.
Well, he's managed to catch up relatively quickly back to Eddie Irvine. Coulthard here, Murray. Now has he got the opportunity to try and overtake him? As much as I know that I feel like
Eddie Irvine, David Coulthard, John Alesi, Johnny Herbert.
we know that he was going to come in for another tyre stop. The fuel's fine on Coulthard's car. But Coulthard, he was almost at the red line there at 6th gear. Through down once again the pit straight, Murray. But if he's hoping to try and get another 5th race victory of this year, he needs to just be mindful of the tyres here, because I know that Eddie Jordan, of course, made that, of course, the team principal of Jordan Grand Prix, will be watching this on every step of the way here, with Eddie Irvine still leading the 1995 Portuguese Grand Prix here. This is a very precious result for Jordan Grand Prix in their Formula One careers. Oh, he just catches the grass there, Coulthard. But he keeps the car under control. And amazingly, he didn't spin out the car there. Now down to half a second. Coulthard is eyeing up a pass on Irvine. The question is, where is he going to possibly overtake him? Maybe, possibly, the corner after the uphill.
Eddie Irvine, David Coulthard, John Alesi, Johnny Herbert.
Chicane where he's overtaken most of the field in this Grand Prix so far this weekend and this afternoon in particular. This is the best chance Coulthard has, so he needs to take it with both hands whenever he can. Irvine was very slow there. Through Parabolica. Now down the main pit straight. He's in his slipstream and he's about to catch up with back markers.
They're really right on the edge, pushing into the limit all the time. He's right up tight behind him, pushing hard.
But he just does enough, Eddie Irvine. He used the back marker, I think that was all Pedro Diniz, to his advantage. But that's not going to be enough for him to try and keep Coulthard at bay here.
The gap is growing.
have got to say, Murray, this has been a great watch so far to see one of the quicker midfield teams trying to take on one of the fastest teams on the grid. Them and, of course, being Williams and Benetton, both powered by Renault engines.
Race order. Eddie Irvine, David Coulthard, John Alesi, Johnny Herbert. That's half an acceleration there.
Over 170 miles an hour in 6th gear, down once again the pit straight, Murray. And that's not even the fastest this car can even get down there, even though it's on a max downforce setting.
He must be shedding buckets of adrenaline in that car.
Well, I bet he must have a sweat on in that cockpit right now.
The gap is growing.
There, Murray, David. But he's really putting on the pressure and he's about to lap. I think that could be Michael Schumacher. Oh, and he almost tries to go for an overtake on Eddie there. He's right up tight behind him as well, Murray, if you don't mind me saying, from the last lap. But I think Schumacher, or that might be Herbert, I don't know.
The gap is increasing.
He goes in the pits. Eddie Irvine starts lap 56 out of 71. As we are just coming up.
Race order. Eddie Irvine, David Coulthard, John Alesi, Johnny Herbert. And he's gained a lot of time there.
To just over the 3/4 race distance as we reach the last quarter of this
To be lucky, you've got to be good. And he is that.
afternoon's 1995 Portuguese Grand Prix. Well, he hasn't been lucky this afternoon, Murray, as you just said. He's been more than good. He has been so focused, and I think this has been one of the most impressive performances from David Coulthard so far as of this year. Here he goes, almost wheel to wheel with Eddie Irvine down the pit straight. Oh! No, he's got him!
Up into first position.
That was brilliant! What a great sprint down the pit straight, and with 14 laps remaining, David Coulthard now leads the 1995 Portuguese Grand Prix. That was a brilliant battle, though, it has to be said, though, with, of course, with Eddie there. So, it was going to be quite far-fetched for Jordan to possibly win here this afternoon, but once again, a podium finish is still on the cards for Eddie Jordan's team so far. Oh, that was very slow. Oh! He almost tagged the rear wing there, Eddie Irvine, but that was all because of...
They're really right on the edge, pushing it to the limit all the time.
I think that was...
Order. David Coulthard, Eddie Irvine, John Alesi, Johnny Herbert.
because of Pedro Lamy being very slow, even though there was a blue flag. But he was reluctant to get out the way there. As Mika Häkkinen just a few corners ago, just came out for his last pit stop of this afternoon's Grand Prix. Well, since there was only about 25% wear on the tyres when Coulthard came into the pits earlier on, even though he's had moments of going slightly off the track, I don't think they're not as... the tyres aren't as worn as they are, if that makes any sense to you there, Murray, or to our, of course, watchers here. Make that our viewers, for that matter. But this is a very precious race victory. Coulthard is holding on to here to keep him within quite an interesting...
This young man really is a superlative driver.
...situation in the Drivers' Championship. And since Coulthard once again is in...
Race order: David Coulthard, Eddie Irvine, John Alesi, Johnny Herbert.
in the lead at the moment because of, I don't think Michael Schumacher, or maybe Damon Hill might be in the top 6. This could be an ample opportunity for Coulthard. If he stays where he is, he will have a 15-point gap. If Schumacher doesn't score, as the same also with Damon Hill at the moment, as they're all very close to each other in the current Drivers' Championship table after 12 rounds of this year's Reimagined Championship season. Coulthard passes Andrea Montemini specific again, and Coulthard is narrowly leading by 2.6 seconds. As long as he doesn't make any mistakes, Coulthard, as we approach the final 10 laps of this afternoon's Portuguese Grand Prix, he might be on his way to a 5th consecutive race victory as of this year.
David Coulthard, Eddie Irvine, John Alesi, Johnny Herbert.
And Coulthard has pulled out a 5.7 gap in the last few laps. That's past Mark Blundell's McLaren. Ooh. Looked like he was blocked off by Mika Salo's Tyrrell. I think Taki Inoue's footwork. Ooh! And Mark Blundell nearly caught the rear end of Coulthard's Williams there. And he almost got brake checked by Salo there.
They're really right on the edge, pushing it to the limit all the time.
Yeah, I think that was Papis there. My apologies. I don't know if that was initially Taki Inoue. Well, even though he hasn't had relatively too much damage on his rear wing as of when he had it replaced at his pit stop. He wants to make sure that that rear wing stays on his car, otherwise his downforce will be greatly affected. I mean, this is a situation we certainly weren't expecting David Coulthard to be in, but...
Race order. David Coulthard, Eddie Irvine, Jean Alesi, Johnny Herbert.
He has, without a doubt, driven a quite incredible race so far this afternoon, and for this race weekend as well. He's especially for being a more, well, make that, not to say inexperienced, but we do know that he's only been in Formula 1 since the end of last year. But he's another driver with a vast amount of future potential. And it's quite unbelievable that we are seeing... If he keeps this up, he could possibly, dare we say it, be on course to win his first ever Formula 1 World Drivers' Championship title. And only in his second season, and make that his first full season in his Formula 1 career so far. And I know it does sound relatively crazy.
Race order. David Coulthard, Eddie Irvine, Jean Alesi, Johnny Herbert.
To see that Coulthard has managed to maintain this quite unbelievable one-stop strategy. He's really made it stick here this afternoon.
Buckets of adrenaline in that car.
Oh, and he's getting caught up just behind by Mark Blundell's McLaren. But there was already a blue flag, so he already had managed to get past him. As he approaches one of the Minardi cars again. I think we assume that was Pedro Lamy. He overtook just before the uphill chicane. As Coulthard...
Race order. David Coulthard, Eddie Irvine, Jean Alesi, Johnny Herbert.
As Coulthard is about to approach the last 5 laps of this afternoon's Portuguese Grand Prix. Once again, starting from 5th on the grid, he had a brilliant start, despite the collision there with Jean Alesi. But once again, that was his fault on his behalf, to be fair. And even though he is still holding on to third, even though that he was on 2 warnings, we'll have to see if that result will still stand at the end of this race, as he might be possibly penalised, or possibly, dare we say it, even disqualified from the race. If that were to happen, we do know that since Johnny Herbert is in 4th place so far,
They're really right on the edge, pushing it to the limit all the time.
if Alesi does happen to be disqualified from the overall race classification, we will be having another British 1-2-3 podium.
Coulthard, Eddie Irvine, John Alesi, Johnny Herbert.
Well, at least we know that in 5th place is Mika Hakkinen, even though he's been lapped, so it's good to see that the McLaren team are going to be scoring points here this afternoon. As Coulthard, I think, is about to have lapped him for the 2nd time this afternoon.
Shedding buckets of adrenaline in that car.
Well, even though it hasn't been a dominant performance from David Coulthard this time round here at Estoril, it has still been another impressive performance.
Race order: David Coulthard, Eddie Irvine, John Alesi, Johnny Herbert.
But we have to give credit to Eddie Irvine, because I think he must have timed his pit stop a lot more, possibly earlier than others, and I think that he really took a risk to possibly go for the undercut, which I think wasn't the initial plan for from the Jordan team, but amazingly, oh no!
Wait a minute!
Oh!
Contact between the two cars.
I don't believe it! Out of nowhere! Coulthard has spun round! I think his tyres have gone! Oh no! Oh my goodness, that came out of nowhere!
He's having a real battle out there.
Well, this was
Round.
totally unexpected. Coulthard, I think he would have been out of that race. He literally got sideswiped by a Tyrrell there. I think that was Mika Salo. And right on the end of the race, I can't believe he was only just a few laps away from winning. But it's unfortunately going to not happen this time round. What a real shame.
Only 2 more laps to go. The mechanics are out in the pit lane.
He's got quite a bit of damage on his front wing,
He's off again.
but he's not going to risk it. He's going to stay out and bravely carry on.
Eddie Irvine, David Coulthard, Johnny Herbert, Jules Alesi.
Well, even though it said 43% on the wear of the tyres there for Coulthard, he just completely spun round at one of those corners. That was totally unexpected there. Well, unbelievably, Eddie Irvine is now leading again. The 1995 Portuguese Grand Prix in the Jordan.
They're really right on the edge, pushing it to the limit all the time.
I can't believe this is happening though. What a shame for David Coulthard, but he is going to hold on for second place. As Eddie Irvine starts the final lap of the 1995 and this afternoon's Portuguese Grand Prix here from Estoril.
It's the final lap.
Oh, he's gone wide. Coulthard.
Race over. Eddie Irvine, David Coulthard, Johnny Herbert. It's a win for Eddie Irvine. A superb result for Eddie Jordan and the team.
What a superb race victory! For the first time ever in his Formula One career, Northern Irishman Eddie Irvine takes his first race victory of this year's Reimagined 1995 FIA Formula One World Championship and winner of the 1995 Portuguese Grand Prix here from Estoril as David Coulthard comes at a very unfortunate second place.
Second, David Coulthard.
That's in the points. What a superb race he's had. It's a win for Eddie Irvine. A superb result for Eddie Jordan and the team. This'll really help the team in this year's Constructors' Championship. What an incredible result for Formula One.
Well, Murray, I have no words at all, but an unbelievable and totally unexpected, well-deserved victory to Northern Irishman Eddie Irvine in his Jordan Grand Prix car as he has won for the first time in his Formula One Grand Prix career the 1995 Portuguese Grand Prix here from Estoril. What an unbelievable performance there from, once again, Eddie. And even though he did win the race, we do know that I think there could have been a potential collision he might have had there with David Coulthard. So even though he did finish first, we do know that the FIA stewards will look into that unexpected spin there from David Coulthard on the last 2 laps of this race. So, and of course, also, we do know that since John Alesi initially was going to finish third there, but we do know that, unbelievably, Johnny Herbert actually finished ahead of him just by a few seconds. So, but we will find out the full race classification after, of course, the podium ceremony. But once again, to clarify, but only provisionally for the moment, to remind you all again here that Northern Irishman Eddie Irvine, in his Total Jordan Grand Prix sponsored powered Peugeot car, wins his first ever Formula One Grand Prix race victory in his career, and once again wins this year's 1995 Portuguese Grand Prix here from Estoril. Oh my goodness! Well, there you go, everybody. As we unbelievably have seen for another time here on this series of Grand Prix Formula One, the unthinkable has happened, but in one of the most incredible and unexpected races that we have had towards the end of what we had earlier on, Eddie Irvine for the Jordan Grand Prix team with Peugeot-powered engines has won his first ever Formula One race in his entire career and the first race victory for the Jordan Grand Prix team. As we just seen there, of course, once again, that concludes, of course, full extended race highlights of round 13 of the 1995 Reimagined FIA Formula One World Championship with the 1995 Portuguese Grand Prix. And if you might be wondering why I'm also in a different outfit this time, of course, if you did see earlier on in the programme, I did have my own, of course, Rotherham's Williams Renault, of course, overalls, based off the driver Damon Hill earlier on in the programme. Unbelievably, I was ended up sweating, and it actually was quite tight on me, unbelievably, including the trousers. So unfortunately, I've had to take them off and but into something a little bit more, of course, cooler because of how fitted it was to my body. But anyway, moving aside from that, as we just saw there, unbelievably, what an incredible achievement for the Grand Prix team of Jordan there. And we certainly had no idea that, to clear my throat there as well, we would see this team, which unbelievably, as you have seen, of course, in our series, has been heavily promoted and branded as they were a huge involvement to the development of the original game of Formula One, which we are basing once again this series on. I never would have thought that they would finally win a Grand Prix Formula One race. I mean, we did see, of course, Eddie Irvine, who, of course, is the driver in the car that has been branded in, of course, in the game. But little did we think that we would see him win in the most unexpected situation, as you did see, of course, at the end of the race. Unfortunately, due to, of course, a loss of tyre grip and wear, unbelievably, a real disappointment for David Coulthard in his Williams there. Only managing, though, but by some incredible margin, he still managed to hold on for second place in the last 2 laps of the race. And And it was almost a near miss that he also had with Eddie Irvine, but quick reactions from, of course, the Northern Irishman meant that he got past. But we do know that looking back on the footage, and we also, the FIA stewards have also noted that the collision that he had, of course, David Coulthard, with one of the Tyrrells, that being of Mika Salo, he unfortunately hit him there and didn't stop in time, but he has been disqualified from the race for, of course, causing a collision, and I think he was on his final unsportsmanlike behaviour warning anyway, so very disappointing there from the fellow Finnish driver, but like I said, that was totally unnecessary for him to do that, but that's how, as we've mentioned, the AI, they don't even seem to stop for any driver that, of course, you race as we were following David Coulthard from earlier on in the programme. But despite all that happening, we also unbelievably have seen that Johnny Herbert also took another podium finish, finishing in third place. A great, of course, a result there for Johnny there after his unfortunate retirement from the last race due to running out of fuel at Monza in Italy. And while we've, of course, I've got my phone in my hand, let's get straight on to, of course, getting to a full rundown of all of the other drivers that have made it into the top 10, and after once again 71 laps of this year's 1995 Portuguese Grand Prix from Estoril, once again to clarify, Eddie Irvine takes his first race victory of the year and in his Formula 1 career, and finishes the race with a total race time of 1 hour and 45 minutes 0.9 seconds, 0.9.716 hundredths of a second there, just to make sure that I've corrected saying that final race time there. Once again, David Coulthard takes second place, even though that he sadly dropped down quite exponentially after a last minute, of course, a last lap pit stop at the end, which unfortunately he was leading quite by some an incredible, well, he was actually not as long as we thought. It was only about like 2 or 4 seconds, and his tyres gave up on the just coming up to the penultimate lap, number 69, and he only could manage second place, but he finished behind Eddie Irvine by 42.70 hundredths of a second. Once again, Johnny Herbert takes third place, finishing behind by a minute and 8 seconds. 0.201 hundredths of a second. But fourth place is an amazing result there for the Frenchman of John Alesi in his Ferrari, as he once again takes fourth place and finished behind by 1 minute 13 seconds. 0.731 hundredths of a second. But unbelievably, for the first time in his Formula 1, of course, season, and in his career, after many podiums from last year in 1994, Finnish Mika Häkkinen manages to hold on to fifth place for the first points of the season for him there, with and finishing behind by 1 minute 32 seconds, 0.496 hundredths of a second. And rounding up the top 6 is once again fellow Frenchman of Olivier Panis, taking the last point in his Ligier Mugen Honda, and finishing behind by 1 lap. But we do know that also, even though we didn't mention his name throughout the race, but we do know that unfortunately he had quite a dangerous accident earlier on, Ukyo Katayama. But we do know that even though he, of course, we did find out towards the start of the race he had an unexpected collision with Luca Badoa, but we do know that sadly he of course has retired from the race, and even though that it does say that we have him in 7th place, but due to what happened in the real life race, we do know that he suffered an unexpected airborne collision with Minardi's Luca Badoa, and we do know that he is going to be exempt from this race, so for the race results in particular. And just missing out on the top 6 in the championship points was the Sauber duo of, once again, Germany's Heinz-Harald Frentzen taking 7th place, and once again he was behind by 2 laps, and his Frenchman teammate, that being Jean-Christophe Bouillon, also takes in 8th place, also finishing behind by 2 laps. But amazingly, once again in the top 10, Massimiliano Max Parpis takes 9th place and was finished behind by 4 laps. But unbelievably, in his first ever Formula 1 race in his career, the Swiss driver who just made his debut as of this race weekend, Jean-Denis Delatraz, rounds off the top 10 and finishing in once again in 10th place and behind by 4 laps. But we also do know that even though he was out of the top 10, we do know that also, unfortunately, Ukyo Katayama in his Tiro Yamaha suffered quite a dangerous airborne accident right at the beginning of the start of the race, where he tagged Minardi's Luca Badoa, and we'll have more information on that very, very shortly before we go to the drivers and constructors championship tables. But David Coulthard, even though he didn't win the race, he still managed to hold the fastest lap of the race with a fastest lap time of 1 minute 25.226 hundredths of a second. So there you go, everybody. That rounds off the top 10 drivers in, of course, from the race from earlier on as of today. But we can also, as we just mentioned earlier on, we can also remind you of the unexpected, of course, crash that we saw. Even though we you didn't actually see it in the race highlights, but we do know that from right at the start, we did find out that who qualified initially in 16th. He moved into the racing path initially of Luca Badoa, whose Minardi began initially in 18th, and the contact between them caused his car to launch airborne and spin several times upside down along the start and finish straight, also damaging, of course, the air intake and also the top, make that the TV pod area just round the cockpit as well. But we do know that he was managed to be extracted from his car, but he is set to be hospitalized for a few days, and for what we could possibly be, it might be diagnosed with what he had possibly with, it says here, some potential bruising and a possible strained neck, also to the impact of his car rolling upside down, even though his seatbelts were secure in the car. And it just goes to show that we've had these unexpected dangerous crashes in the sport, and we want to highlight that even in recent of course years of this sport, the safety in Formula 1 has become paramount to try and avoid accidents like this in the future, following, as we mentioned from last year, with the near fatal deaths of once again Ronan Ratzenberger and the late great Ayrton Senna. But anyway, moving on from that, like I said, we hope that everyone here on Grand Prix Formula 1 would like to wish Ukyo Katayama a speedy recovery, and we hope that he will get to race in the last, make that now 4 races of this year's Reimagined 1995 FIA Formula 1 World Championship, as this particular race that we've just had was the last 5 rounds to go of this year's championship, which is very exciting indeed, and especially with the result of the race as of from earlier on today, that has made all the difference, as we can go straight now to updating the current Drivers' and Constructors' Championship point tables at the moment. And even though he only managed to, of course, sadly miss out on another potential race victory. It could have been his 5th of the year if he didn't end up spinning out and his tyres, of course, getting worn in the last few laps of the race. But we can confirm that David Coulthard still continues his lead in the Drivers' Championship, but now extends it to only 11 points now. But he is ahead of Michael Schumacher, who also, once again, didn't finish in the points at the end of this particular race weekend and the race of the Portuguese Grand Prix, as he's now leading by, once again, of course, he's just behind by 11 points, sorry, with 46 points to David Coulthard's 57. Damon Hill, even though he didn't finish also in the points, still remains third with 38 points, an 8-point difference between himself and Schumacher. Mark Blundell also stays in 4th place with 34 points since he didn't finish also in the top 6. But Johnny Herbert manages to put the pressure on, of course, Mark as well, with him still in 5th place, but he's only just 3 points behind. And if he can have another impressive points finish in the next race, which will be, of course, for the European Grand Prix at the Nürburgring, he could overtake Blundell's 4th place and hopefully he can still possibly fancy his chances in wanting to try and still compete alongside and still try and get a decent a result at the end of this season alongside his German teammate, that once again being Michael Schumacher. In 6th place is Jean Alesi with 27 points after the, of course, as we had him finish with getting 3 points and finishing just outside of the podium once again to clarify there in 4th place. But another good, decent result for him there for the Ferrari team. Once again, like I said, with 27 points. And now he has extended his, of course, the points gap between him and the Brazilian of Rubens Barrichello in his Jordan in 7th place with 24 points. But due to the incredible race victory there for Eddie Irvine, initially he was only in, of course, he was out of the top 10 towards the start of, before the start of this race for this weekend. But now with that all-important 10 points and his first race victory of the year and in his Formula 1 career, he now moves up to, unbelievably, from 12 to, since he was tied with fellow Sauber driver for the Red Bull Sauber Ford team of Carl Wendiger, with originally 5 points. He now is up to now 15 points and 2 points ahead of Gerhard Berger, who is in 9th now at the moment with 13 points. And rounding out the top 10 is also, as we mentioned just now, the driver who is replacing, of course, Carl Wendiger, as of currently so far, of Jean-Christophe Bourgnon with 11 points. And just outside of the top 10, Olivier Panis has made it now to 10 points in his Ligier Mugen Honda. And we also had, as we mentioned, Carl Wendiger is still in 12th place with 5 points. Ukyo Katayama is 13th with 4 points, with Mika Hakkinen taking his first points of the championship. Once again, to remind you, taking 3 points there for, of course, for the Marlboro McLaren Mercedes team, still in 14th. With, once again, Taki Inoue also tied with him, also with 3 points in his footwork kart. And Heinz-Held Frentzen and also Mika Salo are both tied in 16th place with just only 1 point, as we reach, of course, the last 4 rounds next time out of this year's 1995 FIA Formula 1 World Drivers' Championship. So with that covering the Drivers' Championship, let's get straight on to updating the Constructors' Championship. And even though, despite the, of course, the only driver finishing in the points of this race weekend for Williams, but they still, at the moment, Williams-Renault extend their lead in the Constructors' Championship by 16 points. Benetton-Renault stay in second with 73 points, and 27 points behind them are McLaren Mercedes, with 46 points, but unbelievably, as you can see, also both in 4th place now, and due to that all-important race victory for the team, for the first time that they've got a race victory in their Formula 1 team history, Jordan Peugeot are now tied currently with Ferrari, and they have overtaken the lead and taking 4th place in the Constructors' Championship, and they are both tied for points at the moment after once again 13 rounds of this year's championship, with Sauber Ford now of course still at the moment with 17 points, and Ligier Mugen Honda move up slightly with 1 additional point with Olivier Panis there, once again still in 7th, but they move up now with 10 points, and still once again Tyrrell Yamaha are in 8th with 5 points, and once again still in 9th place with only 3 points are Footwork Hearts. Well, there you go, everybody. We have come to, once again, the end of another edition of Grand Prix Formula 1, and let me tell you, everybody, as I have mentioned a few times already in this series, this has been another unexpected and unpredictable race, and just to see, I mean, you know, this team of course, as of Jordan Grand Prix, we are seeing something that we certainly had no idea was possible, in all thanks to the game and how the AI, of course, are based around in the of course in the race. And we couldn't remember exactly where he started initially, but timing his pit stop around the same time as the likes of course, David Coulthard right at the beginning of the race as well, I think has all paid off. I think they went for an undercut, and it was a brave and quite bold risk for the team, but Eddie Jordan must be once again overjoyed with his team, with his first result, a superb result for him and the rest of the hard-working Jordan Grand Prix team, and I'm sure they're going to be celebrating, of course, into the early hours with this race victory, but hopefully the celebrations won't be too long, because next time out here on Grand Prix Formula 1, we have reached the final race of the second European leg of this year's 1995 Reimagined FIA Formula 1 World Championship, as we head to the Nürburgring for the European Grand Prix, and even though of course the circuit is based in Germany, it has been given the title of hosting this year's European Grand Prix, and we do know that once again, German racing fans are once again delighted to have another Grand Prix again in their country this year, and hopefully they are hoping for another good result with, of course, their national hero of Michael Schumacher, who once again, we do know that last time out, back in, I think if I can just actually remind you all here, while I have got it also here on my phone, that in the European Grand Prix from last year, and we can clarify that, oh, and unbelievably, my apologies, that of course it weren't at the Nürburgring at that point, but it was at Jerez in Spain for the 14th round of last year's championship, and he did actually win last time out at the European Grand Prix, even though that's the first time in a while that actually in the Grand Prix Formula 1 calendar that we're heading to the Nürburgring for, of course, this particular race. But we do know it is going to be very exciting though, nevertheless, and we are most certainly looking forward to bringing you, of course, full extended race highlights of that coming up very, very soon in unbelievably just a week's time here on Jackpot, Button Lewis Sport Productions, and here on Grand Prix Formula 1. And just a reminder that also we have other sport coming up very soon from this week here and from the start of next week here on Jackpot Button Lewis Sport Productions, as will also be live from the Daugava National Stadium in Latvia, and more specifically in the, of course, the city and the capital, that being of Riga, as the England senior men's football team are just one match away from possible qualification for next year year's FIFA World Cup in, of course, the Pan-American countries of the United States of America, Mexico, and also Canada. And they are going to be taking on the team of Latvia for a potential place to qualify as of with only 2 games to go also, and they are hoping to qualify for next year's FIFA World Cup. And don't forget that here on Jackpot Button Lewis Productions and also on YouTube, I will be, of course, presenting a special program, of course, showing all of the extensive coverage and also full match action from, of course, live also from 7 o'clock, and then the kickoff to this game also starting from 7:45, and it most certainly is going to be exciting to be covering that also with this, as I've just been seeing, on the back of an impressive 3-0 victory for, of course, for the England senior men's football team, following an impressive performance with a friendly match with their fellow home nation that they played west of the border in the United Kingdom of Wales at Wembley Stadium. And they are certainly in a very strong position as currently, even though that the captain of Harry Kane had to miss out on the previous game due to an ankle injury. But we do know that because of the reason why that they are just a game away, for they got 2 other games to, of course, play in their league, in their group of the qualifiers. But we do know that they have also, after in an impressive, only just a 1-goal win from, I think it was Andorra, actually. Albania, sorry. No, that was one of the countries there from one of the other groups. But I do know that they had a narrow victory over, of course, Serbia, and that has made all the difference in their current group of Group K at the moment, following that all-important victory for them. And it's going to be very, very interesting with, and unbelievably, the goal was scored by the player of Reimagining, there we go, I think I've pronounced it right there, in the scored in the of course 1 additional minute at the end of the first half. But as of recording this now, we also have a load of other games also going on at this time as well. But we will be, of course, once again following England from next Tuesday. Also going to be here in this very same studio, and also as well, with that also being said, we also have got other games also to look forward to with, and actually I was actually right there. Andorra will take on Serbia also in the same group, as well as Italy taking on Israel in Group I. In Group F, Republic of Ireland against Armenia. In Group E, also Turkey and Georgia. Also in Group F, Portugal and Hungary. And also in, as well as another Group E fixture with Spain versus Bulgaria. And also in Group I again, Estonia taking on Moldova. So that's a very exciting lineup there. And I'm really looking forward to be bringing, of course, this match, of course, courtesy also of Jackpot Button Lewis 1, more specifically on ITV, as they have been given rights to all of the, of course, qualifier matches for major tournaments, and more specifically, as of currently, the European qualifiers for FIFA World Cup 26 as well. So, but anyway, with all that to look forward to, it's time for us to wrap up this edition of Grand Prix Formula 1. And once again, an incredible and remarkable achievement for Northern Irishman Eddie Irvine, taking his first race victory in not just his Formula 1 career, but also there's it definitely has been a little bit of a luck for the Irish, as once again Jordan Grand Prix take their first race victory in their Formula 1 history. And of course, even though it hasn't made much difference to the Drivers' Championship, still David Coulthard is leading the Drivers' Championship, as well as Williams in the Constructors' Championship. And we'll be back in just a week's time for round 14 of the 1995 Reimagined FIA Formula 1 World Championship, as we have the 1995 Grand Prix of Europe at the Nürburgring in Germany. But until then, from me, Jack Wright, and from everyone here from the, of course, we'll make that Jackpot Button Lewis Sports Productions studio, and as well here on my playthrough series of Grand Prix Formula 1, we'll see you in just a week's time for the next round of this reimagined 1995 Formula 1 season. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye. Are we done? Oh, well done everybody. That was another unexpected one, wasn't it? That was crazy. Oh, but that is unbelievable. Another shock winner result there on this series. I certainly was not expecting that at all. And we did actually have, was it Rubens Barrichello, who actually finished, was it fourth? Like right at the beginning of his home race, and then he got promoted to third, and then obviously we had to go back, we had to revise the results after that disqualification for David Coulthard and also Michael Schumacher. That's absolutely crazy. Oh, of course. Well, I know that this is so... I obviously kept it quiet just for the video. I accidentally cut myself with a kitchen knife, of all things. Yeah. I was cutting some bread and then it just went straight through. I was only just like holding the bread and with the knife, and it just went straight through. Yeah, I'm fine, honestly. It's it could have been a lot worse, but it's just a relatively small incision wound. But hopefully I'll get this plaster off in a few days' time anyway, so... But anyway, with that being said, well done everybody. This has been another unexpected but another enjoyable edition of Grand Prix Formula 1. And we'll move on to the next round at the Nürburgring for the European Grand Prix in just a few days' time. So with that being said, that concludes the 13th edition now, sorry, of the my playthrough series of Grand Prix Formula 1, with once again full extended race highlights of the 1995 Portuguese Grand Prix from the Circuit Do Estoril. And cut. If you enjoyed this race here on Jackpot Button Lewis Productions, let me know on what you thought of the race by giving a like on this video and subscribing so you never miss out on future races with more exciting classic retro Grand Prix racing action. And also once again, let us know on your thoughts on the video by commenting down below in the, of course, comment box. And we look forward to seeing you for some more exciting, more future Grand Prix racing action, all here on Jackpot Button Lewis Productions here on YouTube.